dodge in there. Welcome to May 19th, Paperwork That Protects Everyone. We want to make sure that we take care of that legal planning before we need it. So, are you in the right place? Yes. Okay, welcome. Thank you so much for coming, and especially through the rain. I really commend you for coming in through that. Most of us don't argue because we don't love each other. We tend to argue under times of stress because we really just don't know what to do, what role we're going to be playing. And so today we're going to talk about not just paperwork for the sake of paperwork. We're going to talk about paperwork as it relates to planning and securing those roles as to who does what, when and where and why, and how to make sure that our family knows and we communicate that. My name is Leanne Balta, and this is Betsy Bautista Flowers, and we are your hosts and moderators of Your Silver Journey. Your Silver Journey came about because we were taking care of our moms, and we were lost, we were confused, we weren't sure what steps to take, who to listen to, and so we wanted to create a safe place that we could bring experts, community, other experts that love their communities and learn more about all the questions that we have. All. That's kind of a relative term. So we're here to learn as you are, and we thank you so much for coming.
Yes, we're grateful that you're here, and welcome.
We couldn't do this without our education partners. I think of them as the bridge between what I know and what I don't know, and who do I call when I need help. When I have clients, in the real estate business, we're always helping those that are in times of crisis. Maybe they're just in a stressful situation, and we're there to help reduce that overwhelm. And so who do we call to assist them? And that's the education partners that you see in the room. And so I would just like to take a brief minute and have them say their names and who they're with, so that later at the end you can go and maybe talk to them, ask them some questions that weren't answered during the time that we were talking on the panel. So let's start over here with Sydney.
Hi everyone, my name is Sydney. I'm here representing Assisted Living Locators, Dave up there. We are a senior living referral company, so we help families and loved ones find senior living options ranging from 55 and older to memory care. So think of us kind of like a realtor for senior living communities, and we are really here to educate more than anything. We want to make sure the process is super autonomous and educated, and you can make the best decision possible for your loved one. So,
Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Kayla Holmes. I'm with Indiana Estate and Elder Law. I handle all of their marketing. Jenny is our owner and attorney, so you'll be hearing all about our company today, so I'll let her handle that, and thank you guys for showing up today.
John.
Hi, I'm Jonna. I'm with Harmony Senior Relocation Services. We help individuals who are downsizing and moving to a smaller home. We help in 4 areas. We help to plan, purge, pack, and place.
Again, in real estate, we have our lanes and we pull along our partners that really function best in their lanes. And Jonna is an amazing resource when you have someone that you want treated with that tender loving care during that time of stress. So thank you for that, Jonna. That's who I call anyone. All right, who else do we have? Miss Lisa?
Hi, my name is Lisa Kellum, and I'm here for Storn Financial Wellness. Storn Financial, actually. We have 4 different pillars. We have financial advisory, we have tax services, we offer business advisory services and bookkeeping as well. And then our newest pillar is financial wellness, which is how I introduced myself, right? And we offer services for bill pay for clients, organizing, tax preparation, helping people fill out forms through life's transitions, and also offer services as power of attorney and trustee for people who don't have family members or other people to do that.
Thanks, Lisa. And Lisa brought Sarah and Matt with her today, so thank you for coming. Thank you. We have Miss Brooklyn in the back.
Hello, I'm Brooklyn. I'm with Home Instead. We are a non-medical home care company. So We help support seniors with things like companionship, transportation, personal care such as bathing, toileting, dressing, things of that nature. We do provide 24/7 care as well, but we often meet with families who are just trying to navigate the best course of action for their loved one. And so we're here as a resource for you and for them, and are here to educate and provide any support we can. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Thanks, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
You're welcome to come and sit. I reserve the back row for our education partners. When we're done today, we have some articles for you to continue your education in this area. So we just encourage you to visit those education partners. They are people, the resources that you would want to have in your phone. I like to think of them as resources that will help me get one step closer to where I need to be to serve my clients. And so I want to meet them too, and love them as much as I do. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and ask Miss Jenny to come up. We're doing something a little different today. Yes. I feel like
You're
we
the
have
top
to
one.
say it. Yeah. We do. We love having Jenny whenever we can. So much of the time when we are working with clients and someone says, we want to sell this house. Well, there's not always the person who wants to sell the house is actually the person who's legally entitled to sell the house. And so it's important for me to figure out those types of things. And so when I have questions, when I need someone to help me interpret whatever the documents are, Jenny is someone who I would call to ask for help. Lisa, I could also call. So I just wanted you to understand how important they are to me serving my clients in times of crisis or overwhelm. So thank you for being here.
Yes. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
So
No one ever has an issue hearing me.
we could probably do without them, but probably. So thank you for being here. Of course. Jenny, we normally have a panel of 3 because we're asking maybe the same topic from multiple different perspectives. Whenever I have Jenny on the panel, and she has this much time to speak, I feel like we don't get enough of her. So I've asked her to come today, and she gets to wear several different hats, but we all get to hear from her. So thank you. You really get to. So we're going to hear from Jenny today. Well, is there anything you'd like to tell them about yourself?
I guess I'll maybe introduce a little bit more about my company. So Indiana State and Elder Law, we, like our company name signals, all we do is estate planning and elder law. We don't pretend to do or be anyone else. I jokingly tell my own family and friends that you need help with a divorce, you've had too much to drink and got busted, you need to file bankruptcy. Do not send me a Facebook message, I'm not gonna know what to do. Yeah, we stay in our lane, and I like to think that we do it very well. We have 4 office locations. Our main office is in Fishers, so that's the closest one to here. And then the other office location, number 2, is in Rockville, so land of the covered bridges. If you've heard of the Covered Bridge Festival, beautiful area of the state. Number 3 is Wabash. Fun fact, not where Wabash College is. Wabash, Indiana is up north. Kind of hard to explain, maybe a little bit.
County.
Yeah, no, Wabash County.
Wabash.
Yeah, Wabash County.
Near Dipton.
Still north, yeah. It's kind of hard to explain. And then number 4 is Franklin. So Franklin down south is our newest office location. I jokingly tell clients that I got tired of our clients belly aching that live on the south side, saying that they've got to get on 465 and come up to us. So I was like, okay, we'll open an office down there.
I
So,
wonder why.
not
Because
really.
you also live in Sheridan, right?
Yeah, we live very far
Yeah.
north.
So you're like all over the place.
Yes.
And you say Fishers, but can you give me the crossroads of that office?
It is just north of that just awful intersection that they keep messing with.
They do change it a lot.
96 in Allisonville. It was a Michigan left for a second, and then they put this roundabout that feels like it's a miniature roundabout.
It does.
It's very strange. So just like a mile-ish north of that.
Because when we think Fishers, like I think Betsy lives way in Fishers, like by Saxony.
Mhm.
But there's just a little in
It's
Fishers.
near that airport.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Or that old Ritter's, just an old
Yes,
Ritter's
the
right
old
there.
Ritter's, yeah.
Yep.
I'm a client, that's why I know.
Perfect.
This is a client, so he knows. Well, so we asked you to play 3 different roles today. I wanted to hear from you as an estate and elder law attorney, and then a trust officer, which also is what Lisa does. And then we're gonna talk about the role of a mediator, a family law professional. We'll talk a little bit about that. Because I want us all to understand that those are different roles, they do different things. And but before we get started, can you tell me the difference between estate law and elder law? Is there a difference?
Yeah, very, I get that question often, and oftentimes, when we're coming out of the conference room and people will see our firm name and they'll say, what is elder law? Is it helping old people like me? And we laugh and I act like it's the first time I've heard that. And I've heard it 9 million times. So elder law is really, I always tell people, every estate attorney, they're gonna be able to help folks navigate like powers of attorney, wills, trusts, healthcare documents, whether someone is 20 years old or 100 years old. Even if someone is 100 years old, that is still estate planning. What elder law is really navigating that space with our eyes on potential incapacity. So, navigating whether like a guardianship is necessary, which I think we'll get into today, as well as affording long-term care. So if we don't have any kind of long-term care insurance and the cost of long-term care is a concern, there are tools in an elder law attorney's tool belt to be able to support someone in that kind of situation. So I always tell people that all elder law attorneys also do estate planning, but not all estate planning do elder law. And so it's something, if that element of incapacity planning and navigating the long-term care space is a huge concern for you, you really should be making sure you're looking forward, working with someone that does the elder law aspect and not just the estate planning piece.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Then we were going to talk a little bit about, from a trust officer. Can you tell us a little bit about that role?
We should make Lisa come up. Lisa's like, no, thank you, Jenny. So as she actually alluded to, there are plenty of families and folks in my world that may have a situation where maybe they have kids, but they don't want to put those kids in any kind of estate roles. So you think like power of attorney, executor, trustee. Sometimes people just, maybe the kids have a lot going on in their lives and they don't want to burden them. Sometimes kids are just not great fits for those roles. Sometimes we don't have kids at all. And so it's difficult to kind of put that on someone that maybe doesn't have this like direct familial connection. So the role of a trust officer or a corporate fiduciary is another kind of buzzword. Is basically, it's a professional that's serving in that role of power of attorney, executor, or trustee in a professional capacity, rather than just, hey, I'm the daughter and I'm going to serve in this role. Usually it's, a lot of times people in this space are in the financial space or tax space or legal space. There are folks at like banks and trust companies that will serve in this role too. It just depends on someone's situation, kind of who is the best fit for someone.
Okay. Now this is random,
I love random.
but I just heard like Michael Jackson's daughter is
Oh,
taking
yeah.
her trustee to
Yes.
court for what she feels like improper decision making with all that money.
Yeah, it's actually that, I kind of smile at it. I pay attention a lot to kind of pop culture and things like that, so I did catch that. It's a lot of times, when you think of putting people in these roles like power of attorney, executor, and trustee, it's a very high liability position too. I don't know the specific facts in his estate's case, whether the trustee was, making improper decisions. But all of us can probably imagine a world where there are some families and beneficiaries out there that the trustee, the one in charge, is doing everything that they should, but they're just still an unhappy camper.
Yes.
So
I sense that they could be doing what they were told to do. It just wasn't what everybody else thought that they should be doing.
yes, yeah,
So,
yeah. So it's a very high liability position. That is why a lot of times families and individuals will put professionals in this role rather than burdening their kids with the role. I would say, everything, there's pros and cons about everything in life.
Yeah.
And so
This is
typically
what
they
works
come
for
at
you.
a higher expense than say someone like your child, but you gain a lot of benefits too. So that's why I always say there's pros and cons about all the options.
And that's what we wanna know here. We wanna know what our options are, so that we know what direction to start even asking questions. Like, you don't know what you don't know until you start to learn, okay, that feels right, let me explore that area a little bit more. So, thank you for that. And then the last one I wanted to ask you about is that family law professional. And that's usually what we think about as a divorce attorney, family law.
Yeah, family law, divorce, child support. I mean, those do, sometimes impact my world because there's plenty of couples that will do kind of a joint estate plan, and then if divorce happens, we may have to make changes to their estate plan. But yeah, so that's kind of how they're sometimes adjacent to us. But
I was thinking even more specifically like a mediator's role, like, because I started off talking about the arguing that can happen amongst us when times are stressed, when we don't know what roles we're playing, we don't know what's happening, we're asking all the questions maybe not in the right way. But where does mediation come in, and when does someone know they need a mediator, or how might they access one?
I think it's I could see two situations. One, if someone is going through an estate planning journey, an estate planning process, and perhaps they need a third party professional like a mediator to be able to help them sort their thoughts. So I think of, say, blended families, that they're trying to navigate how to set up an estate plan in the most equitable fashion when maybe they came to the marriage with different levels of assets. Do you treat all the different sides kids equally? Do you not? So you can imagine estate planning can get very emotional very quickly. Blended families is just top of mind as an example. So I could see a third party mediator being able to
Just help navigate.
what do we want to do. I also see them oftentimes with farm families and business owners as well. So if we have a client that owns a farm or owns a business and they're trying to navigate, like, okay, maybe we have one kid that is putting a lot of sweat equity into the farm or to the business, and how do we treat them in comparison to the others. Sometimes fair is not always equal. So just navigating those kind of difficult scenarios. So from a pre-planning standpoint, that's where my head goes. And then of course, after someone passes, we all know, every single one of us here in this room knows that when money goes on the table after someone passes away, sometimes people turn into people we've never seen before. It can get funky town really quickly. And so depending on the seriousness of potentially like a lawsuit, or contesting, all the parties contesting the will or the trust or each other, a lot of times mediators are involved in post-death matters and navigating people fighting as well. I thankfully do not do any estate litigation. So we have great referrals to pass those. I always tell people I do happy law. So when people start, getting mad at each other over mom's, I don't know, costume jewelry, that's when we start referring things out, when we don't deal with, litigation matters. It takes a certain kind of attorney breed, and that is not us. Yeah.
On your chairs, there is a worksheet this time. Learned a few things this last month. And you can, because I'm getting ready to ask some very specific questions and you might want to jot those down. It's a white piece of paper and it's a place for your notes. Side note, blue note is for your survey at the end. What were you getting at?
I was gonna say, do you want them to ask questions while we're chitty-chatting, or do you want them to wait until the end?
I'm gonna thank you for that, because I just totally skipped over all
That's
of
okay.
my housekeeping items that I usually do, which is that I'm gonna ask some questions for a little while, and then I'm gonna open it up to you to ask some questions that I forgot to ask, or you have better questions. So I wanted you to have a place to jot those down as well. Thank you.
I do discourage airing out dirty laundry, though.
I don't know.
I don't think the whole room wants to know your,
Specifics.
yeah, so just be mindful. And
Well,
it's getting
it's-
recorded,
It's
so.
a good thing on the back side, I've listed some of Jenny's resources, and one of them is scheduling a free consultation with
yeah.
you.
Cool,
So,
thank you.
just know that. All right, the first thing I wanted to officially ask you today, that they might want to know is what in the world are these core legal documents that we're all supposed to know about before we need them?
So, I'm gonna start with the core four. There are 4 documents that I consider to be very important, very vital for most people. So first off is a living will declaration. I wish they would change the name of the document because people think a living will is a last will and testament. It's just because the literal word will is in both. A living will declaration is actually a healthcare document. It is a document that you decide an end-of-life decision specifically as it relates to artificial nutrition and hydration. So if I can be really informal, it's the feeding tube document. Raise your hand if you remember the name Terry Shivo.
Oh.
Yeah, I do a lot of these kind of speaking things, and I'm noticing less and less people are raising their hands, and so I'm like making it my personal mission to bring her up. So Terry Shiver was for those that don't recognize the name, was a young woman down in Florida that, very long story short, was on a feeding tube. She did not have this living will declaration detailing whether or not she would want a feeding tube if she was in that situation. And so her husband and her parents went to like World War III over whether or not to keep the feeding tube in. And I always tell people we knew the opinion of literally everyone. Courts, judges, all the news anchors, her family obviously. Whose were we missing? Hers. That's the purpose of the living will declaration, is to say, if you're in that yucky situation, do you want a feeding tube or not? People think it has to do with more, and that is it. That is it. It is artificial nutrition and hydration, period. A nice kind of adjacent document, which is number 2, is an appointment of healthcare representative and advanced directives. Really fancy way of saying who's making healthcare decisions for me, and what are my healthcare wishes beyond the feeding tube that I just blabbed about. So that's the document that you say, this is the person I trust to navigate healthcare decisions if I cannot make them for myself. And within that document, that's why you hear the buzzword advanced directives often. Advanced directives are your wishes of, do you want resuscitation, ventilation, dialysis, pain medication? I mean, I could go on and on and on. That is the purpose of that number 2 document, appointment of healthcare representative and advanced directives. Number 3 is a power of attorney. So power of attorney is our financial hat. So the last 2 are more healthcare in nature, right? Living will is the feeding tube. Appointment of healthcare representative is our healthcare decision maker. Power of attorney is our financial hat. I always say just because we're in a yucky situation doesn't mean the bills stop coming. Doesn't mean Uncle Sam's cool with us not filing taxes. We have to keep that stuff afloat, even if something yucky's happened. And if something yucky's happened, that's the power of attorney's responsibility. is keep those bills afloat, keep taxes filed, work with your financial advisor, work with your accountant. They literally serve in your shoes from a financial standpoint. Fun little fact, if it ever shows up on Jeopardy one day, power of attorneys terminate at death, which leads me to my fourth document, which is a last will and testament. So that's when the baton passes typically from the power of attorney to the executor, or we call it here in Indiana, personal representative of a will. So that fourth document is our last will and testament, which is really, I think the document most people know about in my world. It's, who do you want to be in charge after you pass away, and who do you want to get your stuff? Those four documents, does anybody need me to say the four, in case I'm talking too fast? Okay, number one, living will declaration. Number two is healthcare representative or healthcare power of attorney. They're the same dealy-do. Number three is a financial power of attorney. And number four is a last will and testament. Welcome. Uh-oh. Tom has a question. Is he allowed to ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how about the rule of the trust?
Yeah, it's like I planted you right there. So
His question was, how about
the role of a trust? So notice I said that those four documents I consider the core four. I am a firm believer that not everybody needs a trust. There are plenty of folks out there that a trust is just kind of overcomplicating things. It's really, I consider a trust as merely a cherry on top of an estate plan if it makes sense from a goal standpoint. So a lot of the times people will consider doing trust planning in addition to those four I was just blabbing about. The two big reasons are, one, to avoid the probate court process that sometimes happens after we pass away. And the second reason people often, when I think of like everyday people, I'm not thinking of like the fancy wealthy people that have just gazillions of dollars and have all sorts of different types of trusts. The second reason is for asset protection. So that's really the elder law piece of our practice is protecting assets against the cost of long-term care. So those are the two big reasons that people will entertain doing trust as part of an estate plan. But I don't think that every single person needs a trust. Do I also think trusts have a lot of benefits? Yes, both of those can be true.
Yeah, I understand. Your firm has taught me a lot about protecting what little assets I feel like I have. In case something does happen, it gives me a little bit more, it gives me more options.
Yeah.
So estate planning is not just, when I die planning.
Yes.
It's what happens when a crisis happens.
Yeah.
And which is more likely to happen, crisis. I mean, I guess I don't know the statistics, how many people die without crisis versus how many have some sort of crisis way before they pass.
Yeah.
But I do think that I hear sometimes people like, I'm okay, I have a will. Yes, I understand you have a will and you know where your assets are going, but what happens if there's a crisis? Like, who's gonna help make those many decisions that have to happen while you're going through the crisis? And crisis certainly is not needing to be the end,
Yeah.
but it's when everything is elevated and overwhelming and could be critical, and those bills do still have to get paid.
Yeah, I mean, I think the takeaway from what you just said and to add on to it is that, unless someone has a magic pill that they're not sharing, we're all gonna pass away. And so we just have to face that fact that that's where a will comes into play, is to support us in our assets for when we pass away. But all of us in this room have probably either personally navigated a health emergency or, maybe a family member or a friend. And that's typically when those other documents are so vital to have in place to get people in roles to make decisions, to keep those bills afloat. Am I echoing, or is that just my?
A little bit.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like, I don't know if that's, I think I'll make this down. Let's see, that's better. Let's see. extra sensitive ears, so I hear those like high pitched noises. I was like, I think I'm echoing. Anyway, so those other documents are, I still feel it.
Am I gonna turn it down a little bit? Betsy's gonna fix this.
Okay. I'll just talk really loud.
Everybody deserves a Betsy.
So I think really just emphasizes the importance of those other documents, because I'm sure there's some statistics somewhere that show that a lot of people have health emergencies, and we've got to get people in roles to be able to support us. If I kind of flip it on its head, what happens if we don't have these documents?
That was gonna be my next
Oh,
question. What
perfect.
happens if we don't? You're
Yeah.
just really good at this.
Oh, Bob has a
Quick
question.
question, can a trust substitute for a will?
That is a more loaded question than you probably realize. Typically when you have a trust, you still have a will. The fancy term is called a pour over will.
A
And a pour over, like
Pour
pour
over?
over.
Pour over.
Yeah. So typically when you have a trust, you have this thing called a pour over will to catch any assets that you may have forgotten about,
Yes.
or deal with like your personal belongings that don't have titles, for example. That pour over will is still vital to have. And so they work more or less together rather than one replacing the other. Does that make
Because
sense?
who has every single thing they have in a will?
Say that again?
Who has every single thing they own in a will? It just seems like a lot of itemized.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Usually wills are drafted very generally, where they just say, my assets go to my spouse or to my kids. They're usually very general unless someone has very specific wishes about my mom's costume jewelry or, this farm or whatever. Otherwise, they're very general. So back to if we don't have, do you want me to put this back on?
Yeah.
We'll see this.
Yeah,
When it
what
stops yelling
happens
at me.
when we, if and when we become incapacitated,
So,
without the powers of attorney?
yeah, so try to hang with me here. So I'm gonna split hairs a little bit from a medical standpoint, from a financial standpoint. Medical wise, if someone does not have that healthcare representative that I was blabbing about, here in Indiana we have something called a healthcare consent law. You can imagine the number of folks that show up to the ER or show up to the hospital that don't have a healthcare representative. And so the healthcare consent law basically equips our medical professionals with a law that says, hey, if someone shows up and they don't have this healthcare representative, here's a pecking order by law of who can make healthcare decisions for this person. Number one on the list is spouse. So if you're married, spouse is the highest on the pecking order. Number two is any adult child. Which is where it starts to get a little hairy, especially if you've got kids that maybe don't get along well, maybe your kids are estranged from each other, and so there is a pecking order in place to be able to support medical professionals when people do not have this healthcare representative document. The purpose of the healthcare representative document is to say, I don't want to mess with that pecking order. This is who I want to make healthcare decisions for me.
And aren't they going to try to save your life
Um,
if there's nobody around?
They're gonna
Like,
listen to whoever's communicates, so whether you're healthcare representative or the person on that pecking order.
I'm just thinking, what if you're alone and you go in?
There's a part of that pecking order that ultimately like the doctor would have to make the decision.
Okay.
If we're like all the way down the pecking order. And if you think about it practically speaking, there are folks out there that happens. You think of maybe homeless individuals, something happens, they show up to the hospital or emergency room and they don't have anyone to call. So we're putting our medical professionals in a difficult position, which is why we have this healthcare consent law. So that's the medical side of things. There's kind of this default law that supports us if we don't have a healthcare representative. There is no such default law for financial. And so if someone maybe they've developed some significant cognitive impairment, or maybe they're in a coma and the bills gotta stay afloat, access will have to get filed. If we do not have a power of attorney in place, that is typically when the word guardianship starts kind of getting thrown around. A guardianship, again, I pay attention to a lot of pop culture, so Britney Spears, there was all this about her guardianship. Wendy Williams, there was some stuff with her. I know there's others, but anyway, I always tell people that you see those kind of things in the headlines. I think Britney Spears was a really big one that was in the headlines, her guardianship. But what I can tell you is guardianships happen every single day, all across the country. There's probably hundreds of guardianships that got granted today across the state. Guardianships are very commonplace for a whole bunch of different reasons. One of the reasons being if someone lacks a power of attorney, and we're in a situation where we don't have a document to stand on to be able to make decisions on behalf of someone. So without a power of attorney, we don't have that default wall that we can fall back on. That's when that guardianship word starts to get thrown around.
Good. Thank you for that. So, in your experience, because we've talked about what happens if it goes wrong and things are out of our control, and we haven't made the decisions, so somebody else is now making the decisions. So I wanted to ask you, in your experience, what goes smoothly when the documents are current and they're clear? Like, how does that work? You said we can avoid probate. So how does it run smoothly when everybody has what they're supposed to have?
This may be a little bit of a hot take, I think is what the kids say now. I have been doing this 15 years now, and what I always tell people is that I can craft the most beautiful estate plan, like chef's kiss, poured my blood, sweat, and tears to drafting this beautiful will, trust, whatever. And at the end of the day, family members can still mess it up. And I shouldn't even say family members, beneficiaries, whoever. Humans can sometimes just be humans, and
We have closing documents this thick now to sell a home because people have figured out how to get around whatever.
Yes, yeah. So I guess I'm more of just a realist, and I don't want to just sit up here and say like, oh, this is how you perfectly have this clean transition after you pass, because I know there's been plenty of cases where human beings have gotten involved in the legal process after someone has passed away, and they mess things up. They start fighting over things that are irrelevant, or they try to question somebody's capacity when everything I promised was on the up and up. And so I think at the end of the day, maybe it's just worth as much as you can do from a document standpoint, of course. I mean, documents, that's like the most duh answer I can give you up here is, making sure you get these documents in place, putting people in roles that are gonna, follow the wishes that you've put in your documents. And I would say as a beautiful follow-up to that is communication. Because a lot of times things go off the rails when there's been a lack of communication. Where if I go back, I know I mentioned earlier, we work with a lot of farm and business owners. Say a client wants to give a heavy share of this family farm to the child that's been, given all the sweat equity, but they didn't tell the others. And so we don't mind being the bad guy. I'm the bad guy a lot, but that's not that just creates resentment, and that's what causes people to start fighting, maybe getting lawyers involved. So I don't know if that, I just don't want to give you a cheap,
what goes
answer.
well, you can have all your documents, like you said, in place, perfect,
Yeah.
chef's kiss,
Yep.
and the family didn't know anything, and no rationale, no reason behind, no
Yeah.
explanation, and I think that's very typical of, you know, a certain generation to hold those things close to the vest. It's
Yeah.
private, it's been earned, it's theirs, and, you know, why should they necessarily explain? And I think what we're learning is, what that ends up doing in the long run. Close-knit families can break apart with that resentment, and so what we're trying to do is just, it's such a gift.
Yeah.
It's a gift to share, but it's also a gift to be asked, like as children, like, just tell me what your thoughts are and tell me what your wishes are. Has anybody read Being Mortal? Is it Be Mortal?
Yes.
Is it Becoming Mortal? Is it Being
Being.
Mortal? Being Mortal. It is such a great resource, and it just helps you think through that process, and what is your, you know, is it, as someone who's getting older and getting on, you know, like, what is your line in the sand? And being able to articulate that to your family, it's such a gift.
Yeah, and I should add that communication doesn't have to come directly from you. Like, if it's a conversation that you're uncomfortable navigating because you're like, this legal schmiggle stuff, I don't get it, it's above my head, like, and if there's that some sort of barrier, we have a lot of families at our office that bring in their kids and bring in, you know, whoever, and have us explain the plan and documents to them. So don't automatically think, oh my gosh, I gotta add that to my to-do list to bring everyone around the dinner table and make everyone cry, and it can be in a different setting than maybe you're initially thinking. But what my experience tells me is that the more communicative that you can be, the better. That just is a blanket statement that I'll make till I die.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I was thinking, is that what a mediator does? Help you communicate that to your children, but it doesn't have to be a mediator. It doesn't have to go that far.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be anything that's wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a very, you know, traditional, stereotypical family that's like, you know, everything's going to my kids and it's all equal, and Bob is healthcare representative and Sally's power of attorney. Maybe you just don't quite understand it to be able to, like, you know, play the game of telephone and explain it to your kids. That's okay. That's why I mentioned that it doesn't have to be you that delivers that. And I always tell clients, I always ask them, how much do you want us to share? Because we don't have to talk money. We can just talk about the skeleton of the documents and who is where and how this all works. I don't have to say that you got $5 gazillion in your backyard and a treasure chest. I don't have to tell them, you know, assets or anything like that. So
It's perfect.
yeah.
That's awesome. You know, Betsy's got short stories of, you know, because she was the oldest in her family, and so she's been, you were just the one that fell too. Sorry about that. So she shared with me when I was thinking about, like, who of my kids should I do what, and she was like, you know, just be careful about who, you know, what might happen afterwards if this one person is designated or whatever. Anyway, what I learned through this process is I went to my oldest daughter, who I do think has the maturity to be whatever. But then that oldest daughter says, fine, I'll do it, but I need you to communicate to all the siblings why. And she goes, and I want you to tell me exactly what you want. So I'm not necessarily making those decisions, I'm just following what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And so just having these conversations with your kids, it can be really enlightening.
And they may say, Mom, I don't want to do it. And it's better to learn that now than to learn it later, and maybe we have a gap in our documents where we don't have anyone after them. Then it's like, okay, well, if you don't want to do it, then who? So you learn those things now where we can get them addressed now. And they'll look at the situation from a vastly different perspective than you are. And so that's probably why she said, you know, I want you to tell my siblings, and I want you to do this for me. They're just looking at it from a different perspective than you are, and that's fair. That's absolutely
So
fair. Yeah.
So fair. All right, I wanted to ask you.
Betsy has a question.
Oh, Betsy.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
That brought a question. So that means that if we designate somebody, we're dead, that somebody says, I don't want it. you cannot make them do it.
Yeah, you, and Indiana, I don't know if anyone's from, or have done documents out of state, but Indiana's we don't have the person have to sign.
Oh, yes.
Like
when
on
you're
the,
putting someone on title, they don't have to sign anything to receive it. They're just now inheriting all that entails.
and no, I'm talking about for the roles
The roles,
themselves. So say I appoint Leanne as my power of attorney, it's my power of attorney that I'm signing. She doesn't have to sign this document. So I could say, oh, I'm just gonna let Leanne find that out later. And then something happens to me and Leanne's like, I don't wanna do this, I can't do this, or maybe Leanne's not with us anymore. And so I'm a huge advocate for putting successors down, cause it would naturally default down the list of successors. And I also say don't just start pointing, put any old person. Put obviously people you feel comfortable with, but we have lots of clients that put multiple successors in place. So if something happens, or maybe Leanne says she's fine in D&D to do it now, but something happens to me in 20 years have passed, and Leanne's like, well, I'm not doing so hot myself. Like things have changed, circumstances are changed. And so that's why I'm a huge advocate for putting successors in place, so it naturally defaults down, and we're not left with a gap of like, oh no, we don't have anyone. Because then at that point, if that happens, it depends on that's my favorite lawyer answer in the whole wide world is it depends, because it always does depend, always. It depends on what the document states. Oftentimes with wills and trusts, there's a stipulation or a provision that specifically states this is what happens if there's a vacancy. But if there's not, then it could be that we've got to take it in front of the judge and say, Judge, tell us what to do. So we really don't want to run out of people in roles, which is why I'm a big fan of listing successors. And it's also a great plug for, I have some clients that will say, okay, I want Bobby and then Sally, and if Bobby and Sally, neither one of them want to do it, then I want someone like Lisa's company to be able to, as like my stopgap. Like if something really bad happens and we're all the way at the bottom, at least I have this last ditch effort before I have to go in front of a judge or something.
But you're also a big advocate of coming in like a doctor's appointment every year and checking in.
Yeah.
Like, what's changed? Anything changed? No,
Yeah.
great. See you next year.
Yeah. One of the questions I always get is how often should someone update their estate documents? That question, it's so hard for me because I come from a place of I don't want clients to feel like this stress or burden, like oh gosh, I need to go. It's been 3 years. Maybe nothing's changed that would necessitate changes in your documents in those 3 years. I always tell people my answer to that $1 million question of how often should you update your estate documents is after at least pull the babies out after every major life event, births, deaths, marriages, divorces, new family members, like new grandkids, for example. You get an inheritance, you buy a new buy a new house or whatever, big life changes like that. If that makes you nervous, where it's like, oh gosh, how do I keep track of all that? Then that's where I will say, then just put a calendar, reminder on your phone for every 2 or 3 years, just to pull the documents out and just, does everyone in the roles look like where they should be? Otherwise, if we actually, in our office, we have what we call a maintenance program that people can come in for their, an annual review meeting if they want, but if there are any changes, they can make changes to their documents as well. So it allows them sort of some peace of mind knowing oh, I can come in there if I need to, rather than the burden be on them to remember to check their documents.
I just thought for me, I think that works well.
Yeah.
I just really appreciated making small incremental changes, or just a reminder of what I said last year.
Yeah, or maybe Sally made a lot of sense for healthcare representative, but maybe Sally right now is going through a divorce. And if something happens to you and you're like, I don't want to plop that on Sally's plate too. So, what's the saying? The only constant in life is change. I may have butchered that, but it's so true.
It is
So
so
much
true.
changes all the time, and so many people don't realize how many of those changes directly impact their estate documents.
So if it goes down to like, you've gone down and you're choosing the company to do it, does that come out of the estate?
Yes.
Or do they have to pay it front and then get reimbursed? How does that?
If they're acting while you're alive, so say maybe you've put them as a power of attorney and it's while you're alive, then that would come, like if they're serving in that role, that would come out of your finances while you're living. And then after you pass away, if they're serving in that role, it's kind of look at it as like an expense of the estate. So they would typically take their fee as like an expense, and then make the distributions after their expense is fulfilled. Does that answer your question? Okay.
I do want to open it up to the audience, to our group, but I have one more question. I want to know how you've seen them done wrong. What kind of mistakes have you seen?
How much time you have?
Tell us about, tell us about some doozies.
How did you buy your summer house? No.
Well, so my head, so I'll say this, which will give me a second to think of some crazy story that I've worked on. It's actually a nice little cheap plug. If you listen to podcasts at all, I have a podcast, it's called Legal Tea.
It's on the back of your form.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
Thanks.
I did.
I have a weekly episode. Is today Tuesday?
Yeah.
Oh, so there was a new episode today. Today's episode is all about gifting and the pros and cons of gifting. Anyways, it's a cheap plug because I talk about like horror stories of like things that have gone wrong. I talk about celebrities and their estate plans because they are awful at estate planning. So that's one way I'll answer that is if you want like there's almost like 300 episodes at this point, so there's lots of content there. If you just want to,
Just go listen to the podcast.
yeah, you can listen to my annoying little voice and the episodes are only like 15 minutes long, so they're perfect like car ride. Like you need to go to the grocery store. I made that intentionally because those are my favorite podcasts to listen to, are like quick, bite-sized episodes. Okay, what's a war story?
Or even a common mistake.
The
Or even
biggest.
the R word, like rocket.
Oh. No, where my brain immediately went is beneficiary designations. People do not realize, so people think that when you pass away, a will is just gonna throw on its superhero cape and take care of everything. Beneficiary designations trump what your will or trust state. The amount of cases that I've worked on where life insurance, retirement accounts, those kind of assets that very traditionally have beneficiary designations on them, I have seen them go to ex-spouses. I've seen that way more than you probably think would happen. I have seen it go to parents over kids, and one time it went to an estranged dad that said bye-bye and I'm not giving it to my grandkids. All because beneficiary designations trump what the will or trust state. And so when you go through an estate planning process, you really need to make sure beneficiary designations are in alignment and supporting the overall plan, so that money doesn't go to your ex-spouse, or money doesn't go to someone else that you would just be rolling in the grave. I've worked on it. So beneficiary designations are a huge thing people mess up all the time.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Check your
So
beneficiary.
is that another good use of a trust? Because you just make the trust your beneficiary for everything?
Yeah, I did a podcast episode on, I think that there's this group of people, and there may be some people in this room that feel this way, that they hear this probate word and they're like, by golly, and my neighbor told me that I need to avoid it, and they can't even tell you what probate is. And so one way to avoid probate is to, I call it Operation Put Beneficiary Designations on Everything. Because if you put beneficiary designations on things, those pass outside of the will, trust, and probate. But I did a podcast episode on kind of the hidden risk of beneficiary beneficiary designations, because when you put beneficiary designations on absolutely everything, you are at that point forcing your beneficiaries to work together. Because when you pass away, things just go to those beneficiaries. They don't go in like one big old pot that, you know, is gonna take, that one big old pot's gonna take care of, you know, bills and taxes and stuff before things go to beneficiaries. They go to the beneficiaries themselves. And so the amount of times I've seen where beneficiaries are like, I'm not chipping in to help pay dad's medical bill, or I'm not chipping in to pay the accountant to file the tax return. So that's the danger of putting beneficiary designations on absolutely everything, because it doesn't go in this one big old pot. So one way to ensure that happens and to really support people, your executor, your trustee, your beneficiaries after you pass away, is to force that one pot. One way to do that is through a trust, to basically say everything's gonna dump into this trust. The trust, these are the beneficiaries, but before these beneficiaries get things, we gotta take care of the bills and expenses. I've seen another, you know, common mistake is when people do beneficiary designate everything, and maybe let's pretend there's two beneficiaries, one good, one bad one. Maybe the bad one's like, I'm not chipping in to help pay dad's credit card bill, and the one good one is like, oh, I'll pay it because by golly, it was a rightful, you know, it was a legitimate expense. I feel like I need to pay it. Who gets harmed more? The good one. The bad one is the one that gets rewarded for being bad. And so there is some concerns there with beneficiary designations on absolutely everything, and that is one benefit of a trust, is to force that one pot where everything dumps into that one pot. That one pot takes care of the expenses and then gets distributed to the beneficiaries. That was a recent podcast episode, so you won't have to scroll too far to find that one.
That's it.
What if we have assets in this country and then in other countries?
It gets really complicated.
Okay.
It does, and it hurts my heart to say that, because I truly always try to keep things as simple as I possibly can. What's this KISS? Keep it simple, stupid. That is like, that should like be on my forehead. That is what I like. That's my mission. When it comes to assets, property out of country, typically what has to happen is we have to find an attorney that is either an international lawyer or an attorney in that other country to work together with, because you can imagine other countries' estate and tax laws vastly different than here. So it does become fairly complicated, but it's doable.
And worth figuring out.
Yeah, cause everything in estate world is, if you don't figure it out, someone will have to later. And if we're trying to figure things out later, the bill's probably more. So yeah, the more that you can do things proactively now, the better, for sure.
Before we ask questions, can I see the blue form and the white worksheet? I'll give these back to you. Okay. So you're just, she's like, I'm not gonna show you my notes.
Well, it's messy. She's like, I need them.
I do wanna ask questions, but before we do that, I just wanted to reiterate, because some of you have been here before, and today is a little bit different. I wanted to make sure that I did a better job of sharing information from my panelists. And so on the back of your sheet is all about Jenny, about her free consultation.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And
I was like, you want my blood type?
I don't even know my better. Your blogs linked back here, your videos. I like to watch you and Justin in action.
Yeah.
Because her husband does a lot of education
Yeah,
as well.
he does.
And then of course the podcast.
So my husband, what she means, my husband and I co-own the practice. Sometimes I forget to mention that, and then I'm like, oh, what are you doing tonight? And people are like, what are you doing with your coworker?
That's why I was surprised to see you, because Justin.
I know, I'm cooler than Justin.
You're prettier than Justin.
Oh, thanks.
Caleb, close your ears. Jenny is more entertaining than Justin.
That's what
he tries so hard.
He's a former teacher, so he's wonderful.
He is such a
Yeah.
sweetheart. But he doesn't say some of the funny words.
I just have, well, that's me. I just have weird little sayings
Yes.
all the time.
On the back of your worksheet is also the next 2 seminars that we have. I am trying to navigate having 2 different seminars in my life every month. One that's geared a little bit more towards senior living, one that's geared a little bit more towards those that are in the sandwich generation. They have children at home,
Yeah.
or just life working. They have a different set of issues with aging parents. So I'm just like, how do I promote them, and how do I share all of that, and which one do you want to go to? So on the back of your worksheet every month, I will list the next 2, and you take this home and you have it. I also did adjust your blue sheets. These are your surveys, and Beth and I, Beth is our new lover in the room. She's a really good friend of mine, but she's just really nurturing, and she's just helping me with registration and getting the room set up. And so we need your surveys, and we want to know what you thought of the seminar. We want to know just different takeaways, so you can read those. But I've lessened the questions that I asked so that you can focus on just the ones I need to know. We'd like for you to consider putting your name tag on the survey so that you don't have to rewrite your name and address and all that. We'll have it, because if I have your name tags, I know who you are. And then you also can sign up for the next 2 seminars. For example, Lois wrote on the note of the senior seminar that she wanted to be on the next one. I signed her up for the next one, but there was one in between. So anyway, next 2 seminars are on your, so look at the dates and see which one you want to come to and sign up, and I'll get you registered, and then we can avoid the whole online registration process.
Are those going to be here too?
They're all here, yes, sir. They're here, and the dates and the times are different, so you have to kind of look at that. So Beth will be at the door collecting them when you leave. So just throw your name tag on there and fill out the surveys. That'd be a great help to us. All right. Now we want to hear from you. What kind of questions do you have for Jenny? You have her for a little bit.
I can keep blabbering. There's awkward
Good,
silence.
Beth.
Question, if you have a power of attorney, but like maybe your parents are like, oh, I'm gonna put your name on my car or your bank account. That's what I was wondering, that's what I was thinking there, yeah.
Yeah, so my face said it all. Clearly I don't play poker. I don't know how to play poker. That is actually a very common thing people do for all sorts of reasons. People will say, I'm gonna add my child's name to my house to protect it from the nursing home. That won't work. I'm gonna add my child's name to my bank account to make things easier. I wanna say 100% of the time, but I'm not gonna back myself into a corner. I'm gonna say 99.9% of the time, that's a bad idea. One, for tax reasons I won't bore you with, but say no more. I don't wanna pay any more taxes than anyone else does. So for tax planning purposes, it never makes sense. But by far my bigger concern when people will start adding kids or people on their assets is you have just turned that asset over to their personal lives as well. So if that person goes through a divorce, gets in a car accident, and the hammer guy enters our life, or kidna, just that. I said, if anyone ever sees my face on a billboard or TV, please call me out, because that's not me. They're exposing their personal asset to your life. So if you get a divorce, you get sued, I can sit here and, I'm a lawyer, but I can make jokes about lawyers. They will drag those assets into those proceedings. And so 99.9999999% of the time is not a good planning move. What I always tell people, or I ask, is just to a lot of my job is like peeling back an onion. Like, what were you trying to do when you added, so and so's name
Because
to
someone
this
told me
thing?
to do it. So
Yeah, and, and I'll say, what were you trying to do? What did you ask that person? And so once I know the reason why they're doing it, that's how I can I can share what the different options are on what makes better sense to accomplish that. But yeah, I'm coming at it from a place of protecting your parents. I make the joke about the hammer can none, but maybe you're just driving home and you get in an accident with a school bus, lots of little kids, you're gonna get sued a lot, big. And they're gonna drag their asset into that lawsuit. And so, just purely from asset protection and tax planning reasons is, I wanna say never so bad, never a good idea. Yeah, good question.
I have a question. I know somebody whose mother was scammed out of a lot of money,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until after it happened that the bank called and said, "You're something really strange, your mother came in here." How do you protect yourself from, as you get older with Alzheimer and dementia, with your bank accounts? You're saying not to put up your kids' names on there. Is there a way to protect yourself when you get to that age?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'm not sure I even have a beautiful answer for it, because I think societally speaking, we haven't figured out the answer to like really truly combat it. Where my head immediately goes is there are ways that you can like be a signer on the, or like be like an authorized user on accounts, where maybe you have access to the accounts that you can watch on behalf of someone else. I have some clients that will do duplicate statements, where they'll have the financial statements go to, of course, to mom, dad, whoever, but a duplicate statement will be sent to you, for example, just to keep their eyes on it. I know more and more financial institutions, I'm not sure if banks are really they may be able to answer this. I'm not sure if banks are really doing this quite yet, but I'm seeing more and more financial institutions that, I forget what the term is, you guys may be able to help me, where there's like a person, like a, oh gosh,
Ombudsman?
no, it's basically someone that I say, okay, if I start doing funny, weird things, call Leanne. There's a term for that.
I have a client now who's going through, like he's been scammed a few times, and now his daughter wants to get more involved in what's
Yeah.
happening, but now he's in paranoid,
Oh gosh,
and
yes.
so it, like, they don't know what to do.
Yeah. Forgive me, I cannot remember the
But see,
term.
we're figuring it
But
out.
a lot of
like-
financial institutions, bigger like investment houses, will have this primary contact where if they start seeing funny business, I made the reference earlier to Wendy Williams, that there was some conversations about, potentially a guardianship over her. What triggered all of that was whatever this darn term that I can't think of, was she was doing some funny things, and they made contact with whoever that person was, where basically you prearrange with the financial institution, hey, if you start seeing funny things, please contact this person, and it's a way.
And you have to do that
checks
in
it out.
advance.
Yes. Yeah.
So, like my dad has something called access share.
Access share.
That's what they call it.
Yeah, and that's not the term that's.
I know what
Is
you're,
it-
I know what you're talking about, I can't think of the name
I
of it.
know
exactly
exactly
what
what
form you're talking
Is it a
about.
trusted contact person?
Trusted contact.
I think that's what it
That's
is.
That's
What
what
is it?
Google
Again, I
says.
couldn't hear.
Trusted contact.
Yeah,
I think that
TCP
is what it is.
TCP, trusted
Yes.
contact person,
Thank you.
or, yeah, or like a client advisor, I guess,
Yeah, I think
Or
it's trusted
advocate.
contact.
Yeah.
trusted contact.
Yeah.
But even just like us figuring out like what are some of those guardrails?
Kind of like what I said, like generally speaking, we have not figured out how to like beautifully solve this. That's why a lot of us probably in this room have a family member or a friend that have been scammed, because we are not in a position to proactively combat this. We could go on a whole rabbit hole with
Yeah.
that, but I don't, does that help?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Because it's different than what you're talking about, putting your kid's name on your assets.
Yes.
Is different than a trusted contact where they would contact you if something's going on.
And if you're the power of attorney, you would have access to directly work with the bank or so you could ask for account information in that regard if you're the appointed power of attorney.
Yep,
Yeah.
I've got 3 right here, and then we're gonna come back.
I mean, in terms of criteria, I mean, if you're in a coma, that's yes,
Yeah.
it's obvious to everybody. What if you're in and out of a coma and got periods of lucidity or?
Yeah.
Or
I
like
mean-
acuteness. Sometimes things are just acute. But they're gonna go back to normal.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Well, how do you deal with those situations where?
So So, actually, I think one of the things we were gonna talk about, I probably blabbed too much, but, it sort of speaks into that is, and kind of goes back to what she's talking about. We're just connecting all the dots
We
here.
The durable.
Yes, so when I blab about the financial power of attorney, there are two types of power of attorneys. There's what's called durable, and the other type is called springing.
Second one?
Springing, like the season we're in.
Spring.
Springing, like a jack box, jack in the box, springing on the box. So durable.
How do you know what a jack in the box is?
I'm getting really close to 40.
Oh,
I know what a jack in the box is, I promise. But I'm still allowed to defend myself for knowing jack in the box. I am a lawyer, after all. So durable versus springing. Durable means the document is effective the moment you sign that document. So if I put Leanne as my power of attorney, as soon as I sign that document, she technically has the authority. So that would really combat situations where someone is going in and out of cognitive impairment, which happens all the time with dementia. Very, very slow progression of that disease. The other type, springing, typically does not activate until incapacity, which sounds like the way to go, but in my 15 years, I've done one springing power of attorney in my entire career. And in that springing power of attorney, that client's file, I've papered that file up and down, because at the end of the day, most springing power of attorneys require documentation of an incapacity. Doctors do not like declaring people incapacitated. So there's often a delay between when someone is showing signs of incapacity to actually being documented by a doctor that you are incapacitated. So a durable power of attorney would help combat that if one is done in advance. Actually, before I came over here, I was working on a presentation all about, we definitely don't have the time to go through all of it, because there's like a whole bar exam course on, a whole law school course on this. When people can sign these sort of estate documents, hear me loud and clear from the front of the room. If someone has a dementia diagnosis, that does not mean they cannot sign documents.
Cause there's a spectrum.
Yes. And if someone is 95% of the time, they have no idea what's going on, but I, the estate attorney, catch them the 5% of the time that they are all hunky-dory. If I catch them during that moment, they can still sign estate documents.
But not encouraged to wait that long.
No one, and even as the estate attorney, I don't like that either, because that's typically when, families will start getting a little huffy-puffy if things, something gets contested down the road. But I want everyone to know that it's not too late either. So if there is a dementia diagnosis, or any kind of cognitive impairment, just because you have that diagnosis does not mean that there's this line in the sand and you cannot sign documents. That's not true. But getting back to the moment of being able to, kind of going in and out, I wanted to touch on that too, because if you're talking about signing these documents, it does get a little gray, but you can still sign them with cognitive impairment.
That's awesome. Okay.
It's not awesome for me. It's not fun to navigate.
No, I can imagine. Okay, yes.
I just
and then
have
we're
real
gonna
quick,
finish.
my Visa got hacked, but I only knew because I have something set up from my bank that alerted me. I'm like, I didn't do that. So I could freeze it right away. I don't know if you could get that on the bank and it would alert you somehow,
Some
like over
alerts.
$200 or
There's also some
whatever.
housing
Yeah.
alerts out there where you can protect your title
Oh
from
yeah,
any hacking going on, so.
yeah. I did a podcast episode on
Oh,
that too.
good, yeah. And then we'll go back here, yes.
Actually, your recorder will also notify you in some kind of.
Yes, yeah. That's what she's talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like in Boone
Oh,
County.
yes,
yes.
They,
yes.
they do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You need to sign up for it though.
Yeah,
Yes.
just sign up for it,
Yeah.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
right. But some other things, okay? the, how do I put this? You wanna put a legacy contact on like your Google and your
Oh.
Facebook and things like that.
Yes,
Okay.
email.
Legacy
And that way-
contacts on
yeah,
Google,
and that way if-
Facebook, phone, yeah.
You don't use it for, I don't know, what, 30 days, 60 days, something like that, and your legacy contact gets notified and your legacy contact gets access,
Nice,
okay? Alright, so that's another
thank you for that,
nice
good
thing,
resource.
okay.
And along, oh, sorry, Brandon.
No.
Sorry.
But the other thing is, you wanna use the password manager anyway, but another reason why you wanna use the password manager for all your accounts besides not having to remember them, is because then you can set it up so you can have like people you trust get access to your passwords. So my kids can get into my accounts, for example, okay, you know, if they have to, alright, you know. So there's a lot of things, you know, we haven't talked about yet.
There is, and I
Yeah.
do think we're
That
gonna
you-
have
that-
some
that-
seminars on
That
safety and
you need
security.
to add
Good.
those things to the seminar.
Thank
Yeah.
you, that's good. And I just want, Melissa, you were gonna say
I was
something
just gonna
about,
say, along the lines of Facebook.
I'm sorry, I am gonna get,
You, if your loved one dies, be sure to go into Facebook and request that their page be memorialized, and that prevents it from being hacked. My sister-in-law's father died. Nobody knew that this was an option, and a few months later, his page got hacked, and they start sending out all sorts of stuff, and the picture gets changed, and she was trying to, you know, catch it in the middle and try and get somebody to stop this from happening, because that was her dad's, you know, her dad's memories in that page. So what we now know is, as soon as somebody dies, you can
memorialize their
that page
Facebook
be-
page.
Yes, and then
Perfect.
people can still leave comments on birthdays or whatever, or memory things, but nothing is, can be changed.
I think if your legacy contact takes over, I think
They can do that.
memorization, I think
Okay.
is fine.
We
Okay,
heard
great.
password manager, legacy, okay, yes, sir.
Do, all these documents need to be notarized?
What's my favorite lawyer answer, Bob?
What's that?
What's my favorite lawyer answer?
It depends.
It depends. Depends
Well,
on the
a power
doc.
of attorney specifically, I
Power of
drafted
attorneys do
one.
require notarization in Indiana.
Okay.
Yep.
So if
But-
I draft one out myself, and I have my wife sign it, and I sign it, it doesn't count unless it's notarized?
She doesn't need to sign it, but yes, it has to be
Well, we each have
notarized.
mutual, I drafted mutual POAs for both of us.
Got it, like individual
Yeah.
ones, got it, yeah, they have to be notarized, but that's not the case for every document. Like, for example, wills, the last will and testament do not require notarization. They require two unbiased witnesses. So that's why I said it depends on the document as to whether it requires notarization. Healthcare representative needs notarized, power of attorney needs notarized, trust need notarized. Healthcare and living will do not, and last will and testament do not.
Okay.
You can tell I kinda know these documents, like, I like see them all in my brain visually.
Oh, one more thing too.
Good.
Social Security Administration, you can designate somebody who can act as your representative.
Social
Something.
Security
Yeah.
Administration, you
Yeah.
can have someone.
It's on their
Designate.
online portal, you can go on there, you can designate somebody. And then you get a letter from Social Security Administration once a year reminding you that you did that.
So two things on that. Did everyone hear him okay? Okay.
A stand date.
Social Security, that's called an authorized representative, is what he's referring to. So if you're looking for the term, that's what it's called. Here's your fun fact, if I have not given you enough fun facts for the day. The Social Security Administration is one of the very few people, entity, whatever you wanna call them, in this whole wide world, well, I guess in this whole wide country, that do not accept powers of attorney. Social Security Administration does not accept a power of attorney.
So you really do need an authorized representative.
Yes, yep,
Wow.
yeah, that's what same with, the IRS. The IRS has their standard power of attorney form as well. Yeah, so that always catches people off guard. They'll try to supply like their power of attorney document to the Social Security Administration, maybe because they're navigating on behalf of their parent or something, and they'll just tell you to shove it where, well, they'll be a lot nice. Well, maybe.
It's the government, yeah.
I know, as soon as it went, I was like, they may not be so nice about it. But yeah, there's your fun fact for the day. Social Security does not
Thomas,
accept
you're on
POAs.
point there. Make sure that you designate someone on your social security.
I'm a real nerd about this. That's why I'm here. I told my son I was here, and he told his sister, Dad's on top of it.
It's like your porch dad's on top of it. We have on Monday, September the 14th at 2 o'clock, right here, we have a scam, schemes, and senior safety, protecting what you earn. So these
What
are,
date is that again?
it was September 14th. Check your calendar, are you the one talking?
I don't know, maybe. I live and die by my calendar.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. So I just wanted you to know we've got that.
They'll be here before we
But
know
you may
it.
be on the panel. No.
Yes.
I know how to protect myself, but also I got scammed once too.
Oh,
But I think
thank
he
you
did
for
bring
sharing that.
I think he brought up a good point though about, kind of our online footprint, I guess is the way I wanna say it. More and more people are going fully digital when it comes
You have
to
no
like.
choice.
Yeah, I know, but when it comes to like statements, for example, like bank statements, financial statements, which present a huge challenge when people have to take over later as power of attorney, executor, trustee, if they don't have your password, it becomes quite the hassle. So I wanted to plug that as well because I've gone a lot of years in this career where I could rely on, paper statements, but I'm seeing less and
I
less
don't
and
want
less
those
of
paper
those.
statements.
I like paper, Tom.
No, because then I have to do something with it.
Social Security, do they ask you that when you apply for your Social Security?
I don't know, but it's on the portal.
It's on the portal.
Okay.
Do you know how to get on your portal?
Well, maybe.
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
SSA
It's very
gov.
helpful. It is, yeah, you can kind of predict what your income's gonna be.
When it comes to the medical stuff, I've heard that you should not only give it to your doctor or your preferred hospital, but all the hospitals around this area. If you got in a car accident, they would take you to maybe the nearest.
I would say, because I think there's a lot of hospitals that would be like, why are you giving this to
Yeah.
me? If they have no relationship with you at all.
You wouldn't know where to put it.
So I would just make sure there's always easy access to it.
Or in your car.
In your car, I have
In your
clients that
car,
live in the
yeah.
car. Sometimes clients put on their fridge. Yes. Yeah.
On your front door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially in a like a community, just because you don't want them to do something to you that you don't want them to do to you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And you hear horror stories about that.
Absolutely.
Where something's been done, truth be told, this may be a good way to kind of end it. There's a lot of gray area as well when maybe a document or someone's wishes say, I don't want, XYZ health thing to be done to me, but if someone calls 911, emergency personnel, that is quite literally what they're tasked with doing, is showing up and saving your life. And so that's why you hear horror stories sometimes where it's like, they tried to, do CPR and da-da-da-da-da. It's like, well, that is kind of a gray area, because if someone does not want CPR, but you call 911, what do you?
I want them to try.
Yeah, and you can imagine yourself in the medical professionals, the emergency personnel seat. If you're calling 911, someone's wanting you saved.
Yeah.
Is there an age where you wouldn't fill out that form for the hospital? I don't want CPR, that you would rather they leave it up to your medical person in charge in terms of how, it's different if you had an illness where you went into coma and came out. Yes,
Yeah.
they might do a CPR on a person.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, making sure that they have an updated version of those healthcare documents I was blabbing about earlier. Because at the end of the day, they're they're gonna be going to the person that's appointed in those documents to navigate those decisions. So as long as they have copies of that scanned into their system.
But when you're in the hospital or you're in a community, they will have those a little bit more evident, so it is important to keep them updated. That they'll have that do not resuscitate posted.
Yeah.
But Jenny's
There
right
might be
too.
different scenario that I would wanna be resuscitated or not resuscitated, that you'd want that medical person make that decision for you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I
She-
mean?
yeah,
Yes,
she
and that's why
listed-
they're gonna
yeah.
always go to the person in that document. Another little fun fact, in your living will declaration, you could say, no, I don't want a feeding tube, but maybe your healthcare representative is the most emotional person in the whole wide world. If they say, put that feeding tube in her, they're gonna listen to your healthcare representative. So really the buck stops with the person appointed in the document to navigate those decisions. That's what, because they don't have time to let me flip through this document to see if she wanted to see, they don't have time to do that.
Right.
So they're really gonna be looking at the person appointed in the documents to navigate those. Yeah,
And we're gonna look to you to help spell it out.
I'll try.
Well, Jenny, thank you so much for
I
being
can't believe that time went so fast.
your usual, just funny self.
That's
It makes a
Hey, if you're gonna talk about
topic.
this stuff, you've gotta make it at least
Absolutely,
semi-enjoyable.
thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you guys for.
I also want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank our education partners for being here. And please stop by and see them, talk to them, ask them questions. I know you've been sitting for a while. So go ahead and get up and make sure you turn in your surveys to Miss Beth back here.